We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So did you start?
Yep. It is now
Okay.
recording.
All right. Welcome everybody.
Hey. So, what's going on, guys? So Keejchen asked me to do a little interview, a post Gen Con interview, talking about the Disciple. Yeah. So I guess not really sure if this is gonna go on your YouTube or mine, but either way, it'll be out
We'll figure it out.
there. So basically, what did you want to talk about? Like, I know we have a list here, but I guess I don't know.
Right. So it's been a thing for a while. The Disciple of Radiance spam, where we have this. You're playing the priestess right now,
Yep.
and you have your book that you took to Gen Con, right?
Yep, that's what I've loaded right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone wants to see the whole book, I'm kind of skimming over the cards right now, but it is on the Arcane Duels forum site under the events section of Gen Con. I imagine I'll make a post about this when, I can. Yeah, I mean it basically won Gen Con in an undecided, like it was undefeated, and it's not to say that it couldn't have lost some of those games, but it did win every match, and a lot of those matches actually won, within 25 minutes, I'd say.
25 minutes.
About 25 minutes it took for each typical match, I'd say, which, in Mage Wars it's pretty fast.
That's pretty fast. Did you win every game?
Yeah, it never lost, actually.
All right.
So I guess the big combo, we're kind of doing like an example game here, is that Disciple of Radiance can combo with basically any healing or protection spell. So there's a lot of like, what's the way to put it? There's a lot of like attack spells suddenly that pop up that you wouldn't really expect to be attack spells that can just kind of bring on the damage.
I mean, attack spells?
Yeah, so like, let me actually rephrase that. So like, if they're not necessarily attack spells, but any healing or protection, I kind of view of as an attack spell in this because of the amount of damage they lay on, and the fact that there's no, I like playing a Beastmaster, and the fact that there's no sort of dice rolling involved makes it a lot easier. It's not that it can't be beaten, because if you actually know like what you're up against, you can actually beat this, and it's just it takes a few like check marks in order to actually like get in a position to win.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's. I mean, the thing about you can turn basically any healing tagged spell into an attack spell.
Yeah,
that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah,
I think that's sort of the problem with the build, is that you sort of make a non-attack spell become an attack spell.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much
sort of
exactly
weird.
What the issue is in a lot of ways, and I don't think that. I don't think that it's necessary that you need a ban Disciple, and even well, let me think about this. Even with the actual errata, it's actually still pretty potent in a lot of ways, which is just something to like always keep in mind.
Yeah. So let's talk about how you. I don't know if was it you that decided to nerf the Disciple, or where did you get that idea from?
Well, actually, that's that's actually an interesting story. So back in 2015, I believe it was, Schwengot and Mystery actually contacted me because we were doing, I think, it was either ADMW or it was the Thunderdome, and we were talking about how the Disciple of Radiance had a lot of problems in terms of like its win rate, and I guess I guess we can talk about what broken means later because that's a whole thing that I think needs to be talked about. But
sure.
But basically, they were saying that an errata should probably happen. So I was like, okay, I'm not sure. I don't like to just do things immediately. I like to actually test them out. So I remember playing some games, and figuring out that, oh god, it like beats, you know, probably 90% of the strategies out there. Like it just like annihilates them. And basically, after that, I was talking to them. They're like, why don't you just make it once per round? Or, you know, that's what we're talking about. I'm not sure whose decision it was. And so we decided to do it for that tournament. And basically, it was like just decided upon then there that, you know, probably after about 30, 40 games of us all playing and talking about it, that unless you play something like a Jaktari that plays an aggressive layer, or unless you play some sort of book that allows you to get stuff in their face turn 2, it's pretty much going to be a win for the Priestess, and that just isn't really fun. So that's kind of how it came about.
Yeah, and, that is my experience as well. Every time I've seen it played seriously, it has beat everything, even rush books.
Yeah, and so like what does beat it is basically like I don't know if it's fair to say it's 100% win rate, because it's definitely not that. But
no.
Definitely, as I was saying earlier, Jaktari, the double moves layer, Beastmaster, the double moves layer, and going on the center of the opponent's side, and then starting to get creatures out, and then following that up with aggression, that allows them to disrupt their actual ability to. Sorry, I'm doing stuff here. That disrupts their ability to combo out.
All right, so you can talk about what it is you're doing right now, because I think that's really relevant.
So this is part of the combo here. So basically, Disciple of Radiance, as you can read here, reveals a healing spell. Same protection earlier, it's just healing. You deal a direct light damage. And I will say that in testing, it was actually once per round. And it was after testing, so after beta, before release, it got changed to not be once per round. And that sort of made, you know, a big difference, and I don't know if they quite realized how big of a change that was. So then the Iguana Regrowth came out in Academy, and it is considered a healing spell, but unlike a lot of the healing spells, such as you know, Divine Reversal, you know, Heal, things like that, it can be revealed whenever you want. So the combo is just to put the Disciple of Radiance and an Iguana Regrowth on him, and then you get the opponent mage in the zone. Then you reveal each one, and if you have something like 5 or 6 disciples out, each reveal for 1 mana is going to deal 5 or 6 damage.
Yeah. And with the flexibility of enchantments in Mage Wars, it's basically, you know, it's instantaneous.
Oh yeah, it's like basically they'll have like no chance to really react if you do it properly. So a lot of this book is actually revolved around getting the combo up, and then getting you in the opponent mage in the position to take the combo. And so there's things like Disciple of Radiance, teleport traps, teleports, force pushes. All of those are designed to sway where your opponent goes. And essentially, like, it doesn't matter how much damage your priestess takes trying to get your opponent mage into the zone. You just need to get it once, and you have it.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of how to put it. So the reason why I chose the priestess, because I love the priest, and
that's right,
is because of the extra channel, and it does combo nicely with the gaining a life. It's not really important in this, but it is nice to gain an extra life whenever you reveal a holy enchantment. So if you're using Divine Reversal to try to like get to your opponent, stuff like that does matter. But in general, it's purely because of the extra mana, and that allows you basically to move out around earlier to get the combo done earlier. But so anyway, there's some other spells actually to talk about here too. Something like Purify. It's free to cast if you don't want to remove any poison stuff. So basically, if you can get them in a position, you can basically have a 0 mana card that can deal, you know, up to 6 damage. It's really good. And the fact that you can literally be across the whole arena and then cast it wherever you are, the disciples will still trigger, which is really nice, actually, for that.
Yeah. Yeah, the priestess doesn't even have to be around.
Yep. You can be in any zone, and it would still trigger, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So you'll see me probably in about 2 rounds here. I'm gonna go out there and just try to trap you. And interesting enough, actually, the Beastmaster, either of the Beastmasters are actually one of the better matchups.
Okay.
When I was at the
I'm trying to play as if don't really know what you're doing.
Oh yeah, no, it's fine. We're really trying to just
my basic
game here. But,
yeah.
Let me tell you all the plans. So while you're playing.
But, there she is, the third one. Okay, so now you're hard casting them as well to get them out faster.
So the idea here is basically let me get as many as possible, and if you are aggressive, that's fine, because even if I only have like 4 out, I can still get a ton of damage, and then they can just like staff beat you down. That's definitely something that I learned a lot with the priest. Like if you look a lot of my old ADMW streaming videos, you'll see my priest is constantly using the healing monks instead of these monks, which stat-wise they're exactly the same. And in all those games, that little 2 dice can just add up to that extra damage, and that's definitely something I use during the tournament.
I definitely agree. Like, that's another thing. If you get into the zone and your mage somehow survives, there's still, like, if they're all active, you get 12 dice on top of it.
It's nuts, man. And usually by that early game, if they have armor, you're just gonna win because they don't.
It's not a lot.
Yeah, they don't have much else, and your combo's gonna kill them. And if they don't have armor, then it's just straight damage. You know?
Yeah.
It's pretty nuts. So yeah, and a lot of the other part of the book here is specifically to deal with corner cases. So for instance, like during the tournament, I almost got beat by Farkas, actually, and it's because he did a swarm Beastmaster that managed to get enough dice on my mage that he almost killed my mage. And granted, his dude almost died, but he would like stay in the corner and get obscured with the grass, or he would just try to keep his buffer as much as possible. And that was the first game, and actually the only reason why I won the first game was specifically because I actually got lucky on a dice roll. And I ended up, I had 1 life left, and I ended up getting max damage on him, and it actually won. So, like, that was the one game that I almost lost during Gen Con. And then I versed him again, actually, in the final championship match. And in that game, I actually had put on armor, so it was, like, a greatly reduced...
Oh, you had to use armor.
I had to use it, man.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so what else also gives this book trouble is old school strategies, actually. Something like, what is it called? The Orb and the Ob, which is like...
Excuse me?
That one card that, what is it, the Obelisk, that makes all your creatures have upkeep 1. I forget what it's called right now.
Ah, right, as a counter.
Yeah, it actually is really potent.
Okay.
Because basically...
I can see that.
What you have to do if you're playing this is you have to just abandon your disciples and just go for like a straight Knight of Westlock Cassiel combo, and then probably just go in there and, you know, try to attack spell them to death, which you'll have an advantage of because you have Cassiel healing you, which is very very holy beneficial, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so as you see, I have the 5 or 4 dudes out right now. I'm about to get a 5th one.
And we're in like round 4 or 5.
I think we're in 4.
4, probably.
Yeah, I think it's 4 because I'm getting 2 out of 2.
Yes. Temple mana didn't work. Oh, he's right. Mr. Luke is helping you.
Well, I know that the mana wouldn't have lined up, so I'd have been like, "Where's my 2 mana?"
Hey. But this doesn't count as help. Like when you in your tournament, when you're judging, you always say, there's the difference between May and it's between May and when they have to. You can let them know, and that's fine. That August Luke is helping you here.
Oh yeah, no, it's when you cast out of it, it's. I mean, you have to use the mana first off of the temple, so it's just a requirement. But so yeah, I mean, let's talk really quick about like, I guess what broken means, because I think this is probably something that would be considered like broken.
Okay.
But I guess like really like talking about what that means is important, because you might not actually classify it as that if you like have a larger definition of that. So like some people consider broken to mean like, you know, wins 100% of the games. Like you're just gonna win, like every game.
Yeah. I mean, that would be broken.
Yeah, right. I would definitely classify that as broken too.
That is fair.
But like, you know, I played a lot of like StarCraft, and what's interesting about that game is like if it was above like 54-55% win rate, if you versed another opponent that was, you know, different, people would actually say that's when it was broken. Which, you know, like that's a much more narrow window for like what is broken and not. Because, you know, a lot of people would rank in Mage Wars tiers, and they'd say something like Necromancer or Druid will probably win most of their games versus other mages. Granted, you know, there's a whole bunch of talk about there that is involved with that. But like, I'm not sure what you could really classify the win rate as, but would it be like the 55%, or would it be closer to 70%? Like, it's really hard to tell.
I think many people, when they say, "Oh, the druid is stronger," it's like she'll win 60% maybe.
Yeah, right.
But that's not broken. Yeah. That's just it's an advantage, right?
It's very strong for sure.
To them, it means an advantage, and that's what it does to me as well. It's like I feel like I have an advantage when I play in druid. It's in no way is it like an auto win.
Yeah.
You have to still work, and you still have to get out on the board, stop you have to oppose your opponent and make the right plays.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, adapt your strategy, all the things.
Yeah, and I think you have a pretty good idea of what I'm trying to describe here.
Yeah.
So like, you know, like, so this type of build, right? It probably wins. I would make a number up, but probably 80 to 90% of decks that it builds. So like, unless it, as I was saying earlier, unless it versus a very specific style that knows it's countering, I would say that it's broken in the sense that it's winning a lot higher percentage rates than it probably should for, you know, the type of strategy that you're going with.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like an interesting thing that I always think about whenever I hear the word broken. It's like, okay, like what are the counters to it, and is that going to have that higher percentage to beating it or not? And what does that mean for, you know, overall deck building? Like, does every deck now have to play that style in order to actually beat this?
Yeah.
And you know, I'm basically describing what a meta is in a lot of ways, and it's I don't know. I guess that's the overall decision, is that one, if you haven't really played this before, you're probably just going to lose. And even if you have played it, you still have a decent chance of winning, but you know, it's unless you have a specific style that you can use, which you won't really know until later on in the game, you're probably going to lose to it, I guess. So that's kind of why I guess I consider it a broken kind of book, you know?
So one of my issues with it is that if you look at what you're doing right now, this is how you would play with the book in almost like every game with it, right? There's no variation in it.
Yeah, unless I was versing a very specific, you know, mage or something like that. Like, yes, this is literally how every game will go. And
yeah. There's no, not to say that of course you're good at the game, but there's no skill really needed to play this type of book. And it's just like when you finally, if you get my mage into that zone, there's no dice roll either. That usually Mage Wars has the, well, I can always hope, or maybe, you know, there's always a chance. And here it feels like, even if I wanted to move away now, I mean, I could move to the opposite corner. I don't know. I don't think I could do anything.
Well, exactly. Like you running away right now is exactly what players do, and it sort of like becomes a game of cat and mouse where it's like, okay, now it's time to take my army and advance towards you, and it's sort of like this impending doom that's getting closer to you every round, you know? Because like honestly, this is a pretty strong army I have going on over here. Like 1 armor, 6
even without the combo.
1 armor, 6 life for 5 mana is really good actually. It's not easy to beat.
Yeah, and you know they all have 8 health right now and regen 1.
Yep.
Theoretically, right?
Yep. And I'm waiting for one of your pets to come out, and if the minute I see it come out, that's probably going to be what I target. And then all I have to do is just cast a Purify, and that's 6 damage, and maybe reveal 1 iguana, and like I can essentially kill, you know, like a falcon that's petted or a wolf that's petted for basically 1 mana, which is like ridiculously valuable, you know.
I even forgot about the pet, but I should have made a pet, of course.
You're fine.
Yeah. Alright, so I'll make a counterplay. Just a little bit. Go here. And now I'm seeing your combo and probably realizing that I'm in trouble, so I'm gonna move away. Just slowly move away. Here. Like so.
Okay.
When I gotta... Oh, I enchanted her. Oops. Yeah, okay. Not super focused on the game. It's just for demonstrations purposes.
Yeah, so I'm just going to basically take it easy. I'm gonna gain some mana, and I see you're retreating, which is fine.
And I don't think you are in a hurry here.
No. I mean, I'm fine, man. I have bigger creatures I could bring out. I have tons of attack spells. Like, I'm not worried about your Dark Fiend Ass really dealing damage to me.
No.
And biggest thing I'm worried about, I guess, is Witchwind Hounds, but really it's not enough damage for me to really care that much. And I can sort of just wait out your actions before I get any sort of aggressive Priestmaster play. Or Priestmaster.
Oh, you're guarding as well. Yeah. I'm gonna mark your Disciple of Radiance.
Do it. Here, I'll move this up here. Yeah, so I will say that during the tournament there was pretty much three games that I couldn't play this strategy perfectly. So it did actually require, this is in Gen Con, it did actually require me to sort of like dig into my holy knowledge.
Okay.
And sort of play like a different style. You know, like against a wizard I had a fight. I ended up bringing out most of my attack spells. I ended up bringing out most of my heals. And it felt more like a Jaktari match rather than a like a Jaktari Rushmaster match rather than a Priestess match. And the fact that you have the extra spellbook points to do that. I'm sorry, did you go? Let me do some stuff.
So when you were playing at Gen Con, at what point do you think the other players realized what you were doing? Like, did they know before the game, or did they know, like, oh, Coshade's playing Disciple of Radiance build, or is it like in the game that they realize, oh shit, it's going down, or how did that go?
Well, I mean, you know, I'm not mean to people during tournaments or whatever. And like I usually had a very friendly chat with a lot of people that were playing that didn't know what I was doing. And it's interesting because when I pull off the combo, they would be like, I didn't even know that existed. And they would, you know, they wouldn't, like, nobody dropped the match or the tournament because of that. But some of them were just like, that's just crazy. I didn't even know it was possible.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I would say some people were tilted a little bit, and that might just be because it's such a like outstanding thing to see, and then be like, I didn't even know it was possible. You know, that sort of thing.
Well, it is frustrating to play against, and I think, I mean, for me, that's why we're doing this. It's to show exactly. I mean, the point is to discuss why you know in the ADMV, you chose to nerf it, basically, right?
Yeah. So basically, Schwengod and I, you know, we've run a lot of the Mage Wars tournaments online, and we basically decided that for every tournament we should just make the Disciple rule like that. And it's really because of because of what I was describing earlier with what broken means, and honestly, the big problem is that players that get tilted. And I was talking about Gen Con, how players that didn't know about it, you can tell they were upset because it's like, I didn't even know that existed, and it's so powerful. And these games that lasted 25 minutes, even against experienced players, is one of those things where it's like, so I guess it causes tilt, which means, sorry, I'm like focusing on this game here while I'm talking. It causes tilting, which, if you don't know what tilting means, it's basically after you like roll badly, or after you lose a game that you feel like was either unfair or you should have won. It's very normal to like have emotions that are like, I can't believe that happened. This is really unfortunate. And most players know how to deal with that sort of thing, in terms of just like, it's just an emotion, whatever, good game. We'll do it next time. A lot of people, will say something like, those dice, it just happened, that sort of thing. It's very normal to have a tilted emotion.
You call that tilting?
Yeah, it's very normal to feel that way, and most players just shrug it off. Some people get angry, but this build in particular...
I mean, it is frustrating, for sure.
Yeah, and so this build in particular causes a lot of tilting, which, isn't a reason to change it, but it is a reason on top of the other stuff, such as like, is it broken or not, to change it for tournament formats.
It definitely doesn't help.
Exactly. So I'm gonna move here.
Oh, here he comes.
Aggressive.
Okay.
And we're gonna cast a nullify. Got anything to reveal, man?
I have a nullify.
You have a nullify.
You're playing it very well, of course. Just checking for nullifies and all the things.
So it is a nullify as well, but I have to pay 2 mana. Did you choose to pay the mana? Yeah, you did. Okay, cool.
Yes, I paid.
All right, so basically what I'm doing is I'm setting up next round. So I'm expecting your quick cast to be a nullify, and then I'm expecting. Oh, you had another creature. Oh, I had another creature. Dang.
Oh yeah. Well, it's two. It's one die. Oh no.
Sorry, you can tell I'm not super paying attention. So basically, I basically wanted to make sure that my spells are going to work.
Yeah.
And that's a nice roll. And if you notice, I have 6 mana now. That sets me up next round to have a really nice next round. So if I can wait you out, because it's going to be my initiative, my hope is that I can, and I'm giving away my plan so you can counter it. Or don't counter it, whatever. So my hope is right now that I'm thinking about is he's probably going to nullify himself again. He might wall himself or something like that. So my goal is to either set you up for a teleport trap, which teleport traps ignore walls. It'll ignore a lot of other stuff. I could also teleport you right now, but since it's your initiative, I'm not going to teleport you because you'll probably nullify yourself. So I'll probably do something like, nullify and what is that? Divine Intervention. So then I can Divine Intervention you and then end up during channel just killing you. That's pretty much the idea there.
Okay.
So the way you can obviously counter that is if you have some way to prevent teleporting and stuff like that. But as this is just a friendly game, so obviously I'm telling you exactly what I'm doing. But like most players, this round and channel next round is the round you will die. Is how basically all of the games went in.
I can see definitely that you could kill me right now if I didn't do anything. I'm gonna try to get away. We'll see if it works.
No, and it's smart, and this is, again, I just told you exactly what I was doing. So plan your cards.
Yeah.
but yeah, it's interesting, I guess. And so basically, if I don't feel like I can actually get you this round, I'm just going to be moving the whole brigade to get closer to your mage. And my goal is then now to get all of my disciples into one of the center zones so that no matter where you are, a teleport can get you home where I need you to be.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing you can do. If you can't get me, if the ostrich won't come to the water, you bring the water to the ostrich.
Absolutely.
Or whatever.
It's that's an interesting phrase. I've never heard it been used as an ostrich. I've always heard it as a horse.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's from a joke.
Yeah.
All right, so I didn't even nullify myself in the first quick cast like I should, but here it goes, and then I will move.
I expected you to, so
here I do that thing.
Yeah, you're gonna play grass. And this is, very.
Oh. Yep.
Very typical of what I've seen.
Okay.
So. And this is like almost how Keejchen beat me here. And really what I should have done is cast Leather earlier. But
right. Yeah, because you are in a bit of a precarious position in the middle there, but
yeah, I'm not too worried about it, but
No.
So let's see. So most likely you're gonna want to cast all sorts of walls and stuff like that. So we're actually going to double move.
All right.
And so
I was getting more complex than I
really
expected.
If you could beat me right here, but
okay.
Because that'll just show how, Beastmaster has.
That would defeat the point.
Right.
I guess I'll try then. Yeah. So what do you think if I say that the way that I feel about...
Sorry, I'm going to start stacking you in here, so I'm going to...
Yeah. The way I feel about Disciple of Radiance is the same way I sort of feel about cards like Wall of Thorns, and with the recent addition of Pillar of Righteous Flame.
Oh, Pillar.
You want to try comparing those? Yeah. What do you think of that?
Yeah, so... That's an interesting thing. So the phrase that I throw around for the type of strategies you're using is very similar to this, and that is it's cheese. What I mean by that is it's basically, here is my strategy. It doesn't really have a lot of wiggle room, but it's such a strong strategy that it will most likely just win. You know what I mean? Like, that's generally what cheese means. So something like the Wall of Thorns, right? Wall of Thorns is one of those things that...
I'll remove your guards.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm going to remove all these here. Give me 1 second here.
All right.
Never mind. Go for it.
There we
go. So basically, like, Wall of Thorns, right? You have a wizard. He pushes and pulls. He has Wizard's Tower. Your hope is, I'm going to push you through this, then Wizard's Tower you, then push you again with something else. And my hope is that all of that dice is going to accumulate into your death. And my goal is to get rid of all of your armor. And that's the strategy. There's not really much else to it. You know, you can have the book do other things. But, like, it's very similar to what we're describing with Disciple here, in that that's pretty much what you're doing. Pillar is a little bit less than that, I would say.
Okay.
Just because it usually isn't enough to finish your opponent off, but it's more of just a card that everyone runs because its damage output is way better than its mana cost.
I'll agree. It's not as good as for killing. Like, Wall of Thorns is specifically good for killing mages.
Yeah.
Whereas Pillar of Righteous Flame is more for killing creatures, which doesn't. It wouldn't cause tilting in the same way as you describe the other things, right? Because it's killing the mage that really does it.
Yeah, because I would argue that oh, that's nice. I would argue that Wall of Thorns definitely can cause tilting, where it's like, you know, you're about to kill them.
Oh, I was super frustrated when people did that to me early. Yeah.
That's why we call it cheese, you know, because it's
exactly.
I can't believe I lost to that really crappy. We all know it's strategy. You know what I mean? It's because it's not. I guess because ultimately it's not interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not interesting.
It's like I'm looking to play this game for, you know, super interesting strategies and stuff like that, but instead I got killed by the thing I got killed at when I was just starting to play this game, and someone was like, "Let me just show you this because you need to know about it." You know.
And the major thing for me is again that it's not an attack spell, right? And it's the most efficient way of dealing damage in the game.
Man, you send the frail old man cleric through a wall of thorns, and they're like, I can get through just fine. They don't get pricked at all. But you send a mage through, and suddenly they're like, I died. You know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of ridiculous.
Oh, Luke is helping me.
Oh yeah, you want to roll more? Ah, that's nice. Getting some nice damage there, man.
Yeah.
And we're gonna move this guy.
Gonna get you.
Right. So I'm purposely holding my mage's action just because I want to wait it out and just that sort of thing. Hey, you're getting some nice dice rolls here.
Oh, I think if you had just put on the 2 armor that you talked about, then this would, of course, be.
I'm in my build order. You're supposed to actually put on armor against this, but I just didn't because I was talking. But that's fine.
Yeah.
Let's see what we got. We got this dude. He's gonna go like this. And let me think about this. Yeah, we're gonna do this. And actually, I'm just gonna guard and do that. That'll be me.
I guess you could have argued that I should have tried to kill one of the disciples instead. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, so actually, if you would have gone after the disciples, I would have actually started guarding with my priestess.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay.
My goal would be then to start revealing purifies or iguanas to just stack on 6 damage on something.
Yeah. Oh, so one thing I'm wondering here, if you reveal like a healing spell, yeah, you could. The thing I'm thinking, you could kill both asps with one reveal of one thing, because you can divide the damage between them, right?
Yeah. So each of these clerics, they actually proc separately. So you can actually target one dude, and then target another dude with 3. So yeah, I could double kill.
It's selective too,
which is actually pretty nice.
Yeah, definitely.
Let me see here. So,
I really should try to play the Disciple build with the nerf just to see if. I think it's definitely viable still. You just have to be a little bit more focused on when you proc the disciples, I guess.
So what's interesting is you can still do the iguana things, and honestly, 1 mana for 2 life and a regen 1 is really good for these guys. And if something like I was describing earlier, like they have a pet, you can totally prep a purify and like cast it, deal like 5 or 6 damage, and then during channeling next round reveal an iguana, and then if you kill a pet timberwolf, that's ridiculously value. And so it's just one of those things where it's like,
yeah, that's definitely another thing to consider. Is like even the strongest creatures in the game, like a Leviathan. Shibian Leviathan, it's 4 mana to kill, if you think about it.
Yeah, right? Like, that's ridiculous.
It's 24 health.
And granted, it's going to take you a little bit of time, so you'll probably want to figure out how you want to daze or stun it or something like that, just to buy yourself that time. But
usually, if the opponent has as a creature that is that strong, just losing it outright, it means they lose the game anyway, right? Because you would have imagine you put like bear strength on it and maybe eagle wings, like some people do, or whatever. It's not 24 or 22 mana anymore, and then it's like 30 mana, and you kill it with 4 mana.
Absolutely, it's kind of ridiculous in a lot of ways there.
It is ridiculous.
Let me see here. Just thinking how I want to do this. How do I cure you?
I actually think I can make it pretty hard for you here. It depends on what you prep.
Yeah, if you have some walls and stuff, you could definitely do some tricky
oh yeah.
things.
But you could start guarding with the disciples as well. I still think you've got it in the bag.
Yeah, so like basically when you're not super aggressive with the lair, it increases my chances of winning a lot. And I don't know if I've ever actually lost a non-aggressive layer Beastmaster. And as I said, in the tournament, I almost did, but I just cast one leather and I did fine after that.
Okay.
And I think that's just an experience thing more than anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's the other thing to talk about. I actually didn't spend too much time on this book. Since it's like cheese. I mean, it was just sort of a really simple thing to put together. Granted, I tested it before, and I know Holy really well, and I've been playing this game since 2014. But in terms of like actually how much time I usually spend to prep for a tournament, I didn't spend really nearly enough time. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much it about that.
But that's back to my point from earlier. It's a really easy combo to play, right? It's not, you don't feel like you need to be. Yeah, I would even go as far to say that probably anyone can play this book, and maybe they won't do as well as you, and maybe they will lose some games, but it will be, if you start out with doing that, you will start winning games from maybe day one, right?
Yeah, I can see that.
You could easily do that.
I could definitely see that, actually. Oh, you're gonna start doing that? Okay, that's fine.
Aha.
Send this back to you.
It's getting real.
It's getting super real. Let's see. How do I do this?
I'm gonna pour myself some coffee while you think.
That's fine.
How many games was the Gen Con tournament? Just out of interest.
I think I played 4 or 5 the first day, and then I played 2 the second day.
Okay. So 6-ish.
Yeah, it sounds right.
Okay. That's the same we did in the German nationals thing.
Yeah, so, because, it was actually really interesting because my games ended very quickly. So a lot of terms we just watching other players play. Sorry, not done with action.
Well, that's not bad.
Which is actually pretty fun because I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's interesting. I actually, the last tournament I played at Gen Con at least was 2014. And I got 3rd place in that, actually. That was an air wizard back then. Oops.
With a wall of thorns?
No, it's actually just like a very custom mage that I really loved playing. It focused on gate, but it had like an Avarium longbow, stuff like that.
Oh.
It's just like, it was really
nice.
Good. That was the one that I think Alexander West won, playing as Beastmaster.
Alexander West. Okay.
All right.
Is that Hanma?
Oh yeah, Hanma played in that too.
Okay.
And, let's see. The year after that, Alexander West wasn't there, and Zot and Hanma played for the champion, and Hanma won that.
Okay.
All right. So I think I've won. So let's just do this. We're going to force push 1. Then we're gonna go up.
Here it comes.
We're gonna cast.
Oh no.
We're gonna cast a Divine Intervention on my dude. We're gonna reveal an Enchantment Transfusion for 3. And then we're gonna put the Divine Intervention.
Look at this bullshit here.
So you get Divine Intervention, and that of course goes across your Nullify, and then Divine Intervention in this zone, and then I'll pay. Let's see. I think I can deal 30 damage to you right now, which isn't enough to kill you, but.
Oh, you don't have the final.
No,
you're missing one Guana regrowth. Oh.
Yeah, it's
man.
I kind of messed up, but it's fine.
You don't have another healing spell to reveal anywhere?
Oh yeah, you know what? I do, right there. Bam. I got this guy, and I have this guy. Oh, do I not have mana here? May not have enough mana.
Oh, you only have 1 mana left.
Yeah, let me see. Yeah, no. So it's just gonna deal a total of 30 damage to you.
Only 30 damage.
And yeah, right. So as you can see, if I would have probably planned better, I probably would have been able to kill you here. But
yeah,
you know, whatever.
I think you showed the combo really well here.
People get what's going on here. So basically, I have the iguana regrowth on my Cassiel. It should be on this last disciple, and I should have restore on Cassiel instead, but I wasn't thinking straight. But I reversed it, which whatever. But that's fine. We can keep playing this out. But as you can see, it's sort of like, oh god.
Well, you know what? It's fine. I'm gonna put it down here. I think you just demonstrated. I could move away, but like 6 damage, you're definitely gonna get that.
So basically, all these guys
it's just gonna take,
and then they're gonna follow you.
Oh, I might even kill you. Actually,
do you have a teleport?
No, I had these bad boys in hand.
So basically, yeah, if you would have killed me, that would have been a chance. I probably would have just guarded my dude if you ran.
Oh, well, you're gonna attack me with the disciples now. You have 12 dice.
The disciples are gonna go in, and then during upkeep, I'll just reveal, either restore. Flip it. I either have an iguana regrowth or a restore, and both of those will kill you.
Oh yeah, even that. So it's not even enough that I move out and you still attack me, but you also in the next upkeep phase you would be able to, or after the channeling you would just reveal. Yeah.
And if you want to see my book, I revealed it. I still have a bunch of other spells that I can do against you, but
yeah.
You know, you can kind of see how that worked, even with the nullify and the obscured, which is, you know, even kind of more advanced than what most players will do. You can sort of get around that, you know.
Oh man, yeah, I think that was a really good demonstration, Mister. You did it.
Hey man, it was fun. So yeah, so basically, like, let's talk about that real quick. So this has been known since I think 2015. This combo, and I've talked to about it with a lot of the previous Mage Wars designers, such as Aaron Brosman and Matt Ash on the forums, and they've all agreed that it needs to be changed, and unfortunately, they haven't changed it when they were employed, and so it was up to a lot of the tournament people to say, okay, they're not changing it. We know that this is like this. We should just change it for our own tournaments. And I know we're not the only tournament. I know a bunch of other tournaments also do that. Excuse me. So basically, I know it's been on their docket to change it in the past 3 years, I want to say. 2 to 3 years. But they just haven't done it. And it's one of those things where, I know I myself, and I know a bunch of other players have asked them to please update it. But, the kind of responses we get is either they don't change it or they don't think it's broken. And so when it comes to a tournament, like for Gen Con, for instance, I was thinking about what I want to run. And I was like, well, for my tournament, I make this house rule. And so I wanted to actually double check. And if you look on the forums, actually, there's like a bunch of, there's a bunch of posts about Gen Con needing this change. And, it's one of those things that the responses are, they don't feel like it should be. And, it's their tournament.
I mean, and
they're inclined to do it.
I think that's fair. That's a matter of opinion. And
it's really not up to me to say it is or not. But, to do diligence,
exactly.
I did actually I did message another judge, and I said, hey, could you just double check? Because I want to run this, but I want to do my diligence and say, maybe we should change this one last time. And so I wanted to be known that I didn't just run this without people that were in charge of the tournament knowing this. Like, I made it very clear, I'm going to run this. And, I got the response that they didn't think it was broken, which is completely in their prerogative. So I said, cool, I'm going to run what I think is the strongest because it's a tournament. I take things seriously because that's the fun of a tournament, is being like, what do I think I have the highest percentage of winning with? Because, if I was doing it for fun, I could run, Elephant Beastmasters or, I could do all sorts of fun other stuff. But I really wanted to take this seriously because I've been trying to get the Gen Con tournament. As I said, in 2014, I wanted to. And I was like, hey, I really want to do it. Let's run this. And, so I
think that's super fair.
Yeah.
And if you look at the previous Thunderdome and ADMV tournaments, you will see that people run Wall of Thorns.
Yep.
And I'm not holy in any way. I've definitely done it too. So and you know, I hate it, but when you're playing a competitive game, you wanna, and you know, we have all these good players. They want to win.
Oh yeah.
And we all want to show that we master the game in different ways. And one of the ways is to use the combos that we know work, right?
Absolutely. You know, like just because it's a very strong build, if the tournament allows it, you shouldn't not run it because you feel like you might tilt some players. Like,
well, you can definitely choose to do that too, and be honorable. That's fine. You know, that's a very good trait to have.
Yeah.
Not to poop on people who play honorably.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely okay. But like, it's one of those things that in a tournament, whatever is legal, you should use to your advantage. And you know, I wouldn't play this Disciple book if I were just to play you, man, like in a casual match, because you'd just be like, why are you running this, dude? Like,
yeah, you know, like, why are you doing this to me?
Like, I thought we were here to, like, you know, just like test some new stuff out because it's casual.
Yeah.
But in a tournament, you know, it's just like I wanted to win, and I wanted to play what I felt was the strongest. And you know, I know some people were kind of unhappy with me doing that, but I don't feel bad at all for doing that. And I actually got a lot of congratulations from people after they heard about me running it. And you know, there were some people were saying like, I hope they change it now. And I was just sort of like, you know, it's up to them. Like, I didn't play it so that I can convince them. I just played it because I thought it was the best.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I would hate. I would tilt if I saw someone play this in a tournament. Probably a little bit.
I can understand that. And, you know, it's one of those things of, do you blame the player or do you blame, like, the
I would not blame the player. If
who do you blame, if anyone? You know what I mean? Like, because I know in like Magic they ban a ton of cards and stuff like that, and it's usually takes a lot of tournaments for them to realize that, oh, there's a combo here, we need to start banning a specific card. And you know, this is probably the first tournament that I've seen in the Gen Con area that people have been like, oh, it's actually just a broken combo, maybe we should change it for next year. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I don't know.
I mean, because the solution seems to be pretty simple, right? But there's an issue here. It's that you banned, or not banned, but clarified or made a sort of a nerf to it in the ADMV, you and Sven got, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But that's a slippery slope too, because then where do you stop? Like you guys decided to just do it for him, but you know, there's a lot of people who have like my opinions about the Wall of Thorns or whatever. It's like where do you stop then?
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, right? Because you know, I guess, how do you determine as someone that runs a tournament, or even if you're just playing with some other people and, you know, you want to make sure it's fair? I guess the big thing is just, you know, how often you want to play and what really tilts you. So, like, when it comes to Wall of Thorns, right? I think a lot of players have figured out, in general, how to not die to it.
Yeah.
Which, it's very possible Disciple is the same way. And there just hasn't been enough games to figure that out. But I would argue that, personally, I think that the Wall of Thorns is a different beast than the Disciple in terms of how...
Oh, I definitely agree. Again, and then that's back to the point where with the Wall of Thorns, at least you're rolling dice.
Yeah.
And you can be like, okay, maybe he won't roll 10 damage here. Maybe he sometimes when they do, you know, when they do the Wall of Thorns push on you and then roll like 6 damage, you think yes, you go like yes, aha. But then with Disciple of Radiance, you know, it's just okay. You cast the spell. There's nothing I can do. You do the enchantment transfusion here. I've never even seen that before, but that's amazing. And you know, and it's just over. There's nothing. There's no like nail biting action. There's nothing going on. It's just okay. The game is over.
And a lot of the games where I had to move my priestess out in the tournament, because there were a few games like this where I usually end up around where I am. Cassiel was the one just triggering Divine Intervention, and it was either her casting it directly, or me doing this, you know, enchantment transfusion trick to get past the nullifying.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's interesting about Wall of Thorns, right, is I think in pretty much every, like, tournament deck, I'd probably just run the combo, because, like, as a last Hail Mary, you know, if I get screwed over and I'm like, I'm going to die, I might as well try to get that sweet all-crit dice roll to try and win. But, like, there's such a minimal chance of that happening. That's, you know, we were talking about that earlier, like, yeah, it's a really cool combo in the sense that you could just like pull losses into wins really easily, but like you know, you're probably going to die in most of the games that I've played where you have to pull that out.
But I think, okay, so in when Wall of Thorns first came like into the meta, the game was different back then. Nowadays there are a lot more options for getting armor on, right? And that counters it directly. So just by Mage Wars growing, that sort of got watered down a little bit.
Oh, definitely. Like
I think with more leather coming out and
War School has boots now. You know, there's all sorts of ways to manipulate where you are or to stop yourself. And you're right, the armor, like, it's very common to just put on leather pants because there's not. I mean, you could put on the other pants too, but like, there's a lot of cheap choices when it comes to pants, and that's very, very much used against to counter that Wall of Thorns. Where if you want to counter the Disciple, it's like you can't really do too much. You know what I mean? Like, you need some very specific cards. Like, if you placed a face down enchantment, you know, to stop teleportation, that might help a little bit. You know, maybe, I don't really know.
I don't even feel like it because, like you did here with the enchantment transfusion, I had nullify and I was in obscured zone and all the things.
You were obscured and nullified, and I just literally said nope.
Oh man, the judges will know that I tried.
Right.
Oh man,
it's an interesting build. So like, I guess that's the ultimate decision, and I think like, you know, tournament runners that may not want to make that change, in general, I gotta say that they probably haven't actually tried the build that they should be using, like what you just saw, in order to tournament. Because I think most tournament runners, when they actually play it correctly, they'll see, yeah, this should probably be broken, or this should probably be errated some way, and yeah, you know, that sort of thing. So I mean, yeah, I mean there are other things in the ADMW that we also errata, but it's not really as big.
You don't do other card changes, I think. There's some of them that you clarify some things with.
So like, for instance, like casting a spell. Basically, if you can't pay the costs, we choose to have it obliterated instead of just discarded. And the reason why is because things like Animate Dead, you know, you get to pay half cost to bring it back. So if you like try to cast a Dromlick, right? If you can't pay for it, it dies. So you say, I'm going to choose not to pay for a Dromlick. And then you use Animate Dead next round, and so you pay half the cost of a Dromlick, and it's a slow Dromlick, but he's half cost.
Is that why that is there? I was wondering about this rule. Okay.
Stuff like that. It doesn't necessarily break the game, but it's definitely some clarifications that make it, you know, just a little bit annoying if you verse it, because you're like, really get a
I never thought about that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, Steep Hill.
Oh, that's funny.
Yes, like our Steep Hill change, like that's literally such a corner case. Most players won't even do it, but you know, you have like Straywood Scout here, right? It's really interesting.
Yeah.
You can't go through. You know, you can't, if you're in the zone he's in right now, and you want to attack this zone down here. If there's a steep hill, sorry, it's a bad choice. So if like, so let's just say your dude is there and it's here. Like, this will obscure because you're going through two zones. But
right.
Let's see. You're in a bad spot. But let's just say your dude was there, and it was like this, where the Disciple in the top here is targeting the dude in the bottom. You can actually see through that because it's not going through two lines. And, you know, that's not a huge difference, but that's probably not intended. So we just made the change because, you know, things like the tree can target past that. So you can actually place your steep hills in very specific spots so that you can target past it, and most players won't have the range to actually target back, and it just gives you a slight advantage. It's not a big deal, but it's just one of the things that you know, we felt like wasn't nice when it comes to how it works. You know, something like trample. I'm just gonna go over the ADMW rules. Because,
okay, go for it.
You know, this is the kind of the chance to talk about them. Trample, right? If you have so it's treated like a melee. Excuse me, let me drink some tea here. So
yeah, I'm wondering why the flying thing is in trample.
Yeah, so trample is treated like a melee attack, but it's not at the same time. So one of the things that melee attack does if you're flying is you actually will lose flying when you attack something. But trample is not treated as a melee attack, so you wouldn't actually lose flying. So you could actually use a trample creature that's flying, like with eagle wings or something, get trample out of the zone. They would still lose their guard, but they couldn't counterattack. So you get basically a free hit on it, and that's very strong. It just is. It's not, again, as game-breaking as Disciple, but it's definitely not treating it as rules intended. And, you know, these are all sort of things that are, like, on the docket to change, but they haven't been done yet, so we just made the change for tournament rules, knowing that it's going to be changed later. Sorry, let me drink some more tea here.
Cheers.
And, you know, that's not really new for online tournaments.
Is trample not a melee attack, really?
It's treated as both a melee and not a melee attack, so it has to obey rules like guarding and stuff like that, but it doesn't have to do things like lose flying. Elusive. If you're an elusive trampler, you actually have to still obey guards, because it doesn't count as how elusive counts, so you actually have to attack a guard if you're elusive and trampling at the same time.
And you guys then changed that back.
Yeah,
basically.
So we basically said if you're elusive, you can actually ignore guards when making tramples, because that's just one of the things that we felt like it should do. That just wasn't implemented. And again, I don't think I've actually seen this rule matter in a tournament game, but it's just there just to see it. And honestly, trample's used in such a low amount as it is. I don't think I've ever really even seen trample in any of my tournaments.
I've never used trample either. So,
right? It's
but I agree that it's better to have it written down and then not be a problem if it should become a question.
Well, one of the interesting things is a lot of my early tournament games, these sorts of clarifications weren't known, and so you'd actually have players arguing, and it would actually really disrupt the whole tournament. So I've always thought it was better just to make a simple clarification and move on.
I agree.
So yeah, I mean that's some of the ones there. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, speaking more about this isn't actually uncommon. Like a long time ago, before, you know, Ballista was released, it was something we used in online tournaments, and we've always said that it was unique online. But in the actual promo, it's actually not unique. So the reason why we did that is because if you do something like 4 ballistas, you're going to win. It just like, it's exactly like this Disciple thing. It just like obliterates everything, and it's pretty ridiculous. So for tournaments, we've always done that rule. And then when the card actually came out, it was unique. And it's sort of like one of those things that I feel like we have a decent gauge on how these cards work. And so I don't really feel bad about making these clarifications in tournaments that I run.
No, and I think one thing to take away from our discussion here is that it's definitely okay for any tournament arranger to make their own rules. Like, you make the rules, right? And if players want to play, they should obey them.
And you know, I've run tournaments for Arcane Wonders before at Origins. I think it was 2016, I think. And maybe it was 2017. And, you know, I asked them, like, hey, do you want me to follow just your rules, or can I do some house rules? And they were just like, oh, I don't care. Just do what you're going to do. Just have fun. You know what I mean? And, like, you know, they were, like, official tournament stuff. But, like, it was, like, they didn't really, you know, when I was, like, running a tournament that they supported, they weren't like, here's tournament rules. Follow this exactly. They were just like, you know what you're doing. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, but that's just another way of making rules. You can have them like cut in stone, or you can say, like they're doing it. It's more casual. We don't really care.
Exactly, right.
But that doesn't create the most competitive scene. But maybe that's not what they're going for, so that's fine.
Yeah,
no.
And honestly, like I spoke about how they've gone through 2 designers in the past, like 2-3 years. So it doesn't really surprise me that these supplements aren't making it yet, because they don't really have anyone super focused on the game. So it's just, I totally excuse it, and that's why we do house rules, because it's just like, if they can't get to it, it's not a big deal. We're not gonna like get super upset about it at them. We're just gonna adjust how we want to play as a community and move on. It's not a big deal, So yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Disciple of Radiance.
I think we covered most of it, and we showed off the combo.
Yeah, and if you get a chance to run a tournament, or you get to play in a tournament and they don't have this rule, I would just suggest maybe bringing it up to them. And if they don't, I would really suggest running it because it will probably win you the tournament. In all honesty,
if you really want to win. It's hard to say if with any other strategy in Mage Wars that if you play this, you're probably gonna win.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. It's such a versatile game, and any build can definitely lose, but this one will give you a very good chance of winning.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
should that be our? That could be our closing words, I think.
Yeah. Hope you guys enjoying this game. This game is really fun, and I hope that this video sort of helped you make it more fun.
Yeah, and I think we've educated people a little bit by showing it on the internets.
Right.
That was what I wanted to achieve anyway. So I think we've done that, and we've talked about. Have covered everything? We talked about Disciple of Radiance. We talked about tournament rules, and you talked a little bit about how I went in Gen Con.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I had fun. I mean, like, I hung out with a lot of cool people at Gen Con, and, we got a bunch of games after. And, I mean, there were some people that I never met from, like, Canada. They said they've watched all our videos, and they wanted to play 2v2s against us. And, it didn't ruin or sour the mood of Gen Con for me at all. Like, because we all just still played games afterwards and still had a blast. And, honestly, like, I think it's just one of those things that next year, I think Gen Con will probably have an adjusted rule about Disciple, and it'll be, back to what is a really good build to play.
I'll be looking for whether or not they make any official rules next year.
All right, Keej. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you wanting to talk to me about this.
You too, mister?
Yeah. So I'm going to sign off. Bye-bye.
See you.